Hey there, it's Jacques from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to day 4 of official Eternal Masters spoilers. We have 28 cards to take a look at today, so there's a ton of cards here. I'm going to try to jump into it as quickly as possible and get started so this video doesn't take forever. So let's get going. First off, we have Karmic Guide. This was originally from Urza's Legacy. Now, I did see a reprint in a couple Commander products over the years, so this is a card that it's at rare, but it's not a super expensive card or anything like that. To me, this is really there more probably for the limited game than anything. It feels like there's going to be a reanimation strategy, perhaps in black-white. We also know there's going to be a flashback strategy, so maybe we'll see Burial Rites spoiled soon. Who knows? But right now, this card is a fine Commander card. It's not a super expensive card if you want to pick up on the secondary market or anything like that, but it's good for cubes as well. Actually, I have Mesa Enchantress, and this was originally from Planar Chaos. Has seen a couple of reprints as well, but they've always been at rare. So this is the first time we're getting it at uncommon. Now again, this is another card that's not super expensive or anything like that. You can get it very cheap on the secondary market. So at least it's an uncommon. Sometimes it sees a little bit of fringe modern play, but really not a legacy or vintage card. But it does see some play in Commander. It's a good cube card if you have an enchantment theme in your cube. Next is Squadron Hawk, and you probably remember this card from the days of Caw-Blade and Standard. That deck was just crazy and took over the scene. Now, post-Standard, this card hasn't done all that much. It sees a tad bit of play in Legacy, sometimes in a blue-white control build. Other than that, it was originally printed in Magic 2011. It did see a Friday Night Magic promo version, and this art is from that promo, and the art's actually pretty nice. But it's a common, so that's good. Even though it's not a very valuable card, could definitely see a little bit of play in some casual formats. It's probably going to be fun to draft around something like this. Next we have Wrath of God, which is a classic card from Alpha Beta Unlimited, and it saw printing in almost every core set, all the way up through 10th edition. So at that point, Wizards started to rethink how they wanted the game to be played as far as how powerful control was in formats. And Wrath of God started to sort of disappear. Now, it did see some more reprints, most recently in a From the Vault. Now, the art for this version comes from 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th edition. It's actually my favorite piece of art, so I'm glad they chose it. Now, as far as seeing this in the set at rare, still holds some value even though it's been reprinted a countless number of times. This card is very popular and very good, and if you want a cheap version of Wrath of God, it's still going to run you like $5 to $7, so it's not a completely inexpensive card considering how many times it was printed. Having said that, amazing cube card. It's going to be great for you in Commander as well if you are into that style of Commander deck that's more controlling. Not too much of a legacy or vintage card, but does see a lot of play in Modern for what that's worth. Next we have Brainstorm, which is kind of like the poster child for Legacy, and it was originally printed in Ice Age. It has seen a lot of reprints over the years, but it's been printed as a common. So this is a example where we're seeing it now as an uncommon, which is probably okay for the limited game. Now, I will say a couple things about this card. First off, getting a copy of Brainstorm is very easy. You can pick one up for a few cents. However, if you want a foil copy of Brainstorm, you basically have two choices. There was a promo that went out many years ago now, and also Conspiracy had this card reprinted at common, and you could pull a foil out of there. To pick up, say, a Conspiracy foil, it's going to cost you like $50. So here's another opportunity to get this card at foil. Now granted, it's an uncommon and not a common this time around. However, you do get a foil in every pack, so I don't know odds wise how that works, if that evens out or gets it closer to even, but you may have a shot at getting a pretty decent foil out of one of your packs from the uncommon slot. So that's actually pretty awesome. And I just wanted to point out that they used the most recent art, which is my favorite art for Brainstorm. So card looks amazing. Hydroblast. Now, here's the story behind Hydroblast. Basically, this and Pyroblast, which we'll be looking at in a few minutes, both from Ice Age, both reprinted in 5th edition, both pretty much a functional reprint of Red and Blue Elemental Blast. The interesting thing, though, about this card being included, first off, it's an uncommon. In the past, it was a common. But secondly, there's never been a foil of this card, ever. So this is kind of cool that you're going to be able to get a chance to pull this as a foil. This is new art. I actually like the art quite a bit. Now, as for gameplay, This card sees a good amount of play. It sees a lot of play in Pauper and Delver decks, as well as Affinity versions, Boggles, you name it, a lot of Pauper decks. And it also sees Legacy play in things like Infect and Food Chain. So it's still a very highly played card, but even so, it's not very expensive, but very exciting that you can get a foil now. Next we have Una's Grace, and here's a card from Eventide. It was a common then, it's a common now. It's a good Pauper card, actually sees play in things like Pauper Delver, and I think that's really probably why it's here. So that's cool that we get something for the Pauper audience. It also has Retrace, which definitely seems to be something that is part of the limited game. Next we have Quiet Speculation. This was from Judgment. Again, not a whole lot to say about this card. It's not a real expensive card or anything like that. At least it's only an uncommon. It could be good for you in cubes or commander decks if you're playing around with flashback mechanics. Other than that, not too much more to add. Innocent Blood, originally printed in Odyssey, has seen a few reprints. Again, nothing really new or exciting here to really say about this card. It's probably there more for the limited game than anything. I have noticed that they're tending to go pretty sorcery heavy. There are some instances that we've seen, obviously, like Brainstorm and Counterspell, but I do feel like whenever possible, when it comes to damage and creature removal, they seem to be going more sorcery speed, and that might be to balance the limited game a little bit, so that's probably why this is here. Next we have Nausea, and this is new art for the card, which I actually like. It looks pretty cool there, even though the picture's a little grainy, but the card was originally printed in Exodus. It's seen a couple of reprints. Again, not a whole lot to say about the card. It's not expensive. It's not a card that sees a ton of play in a lot of different places or anything like that. Again, probably there more for the limited game or for some casual cubes and possibly Commander. Next we have Sinkhole, and this is actually the big card of the day. Now first off, I want to point out it's at rare, not mythic, so thank you Wizards. This could have been a mythic. They could have gotten away with it. It's actually probably more valuable than a lot of the mythics that have already been spoiled. So awesome to see this at rare. Now a little history. Originally this was printed in Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited. Also saw a promo a little bit later. The Alpha, Beta, Unlimited had different art from the promo, and this is actually new art, and this is my favorite of the three. This is amazing, so you did a really fine job there. Now when this was originally printed, it was a common. Yes, believe it or not, this was a common. And obviously it probably made for a lot of unfun games in the old days, and it's back. And it's good that it's rare for limited purposes. I don't think you'd want to be able to draft 8 Sinkholes. That would be that'd be maybe fun for you, but maybe not for the other people playing. But this card is incredible. If you want to pick up a copy from, say, Unlimited, even, it's still going to cost you like $45-50. So this is an awesome rare with awesome value. Having said that, it sees a little bit of play in Legacy Pox decks, but it's still just a fun card for a lot of different formats. Next we have Burning Vengeance. This was originally from Innistrad. Sees a tad bit of Fringe Modern play sometimes, but for the most part, this is kind of good. Again, if you have a flashback theme, maybe in your cube or in Commander, this is going to, I think, work really well with the flashback theme that will be in Limited, even though we've only seen one flashback card, and we'll be getting to it in just a few seconds. And here it is, Firebolt. So this is the only flashback card we've actually seen, even though we've seen some cards that enable flashback. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more spoiled in the next 24 hours. I'm hoping for Unburial Rites. I think that would go really well, obviously, with also the reanimation theme. But I guess we'll see. This is actually a pretty good card for Pauper. It was originally seen in Odyssey. It also saw a reprint in like a dual deck. But yeah, definitely Teamer Tron and some Jeskai and Grixis builds will play Firebolt in Pauper, and it's a very good flashback card. Also good for cubes, especially with a flashback theme and Commander. Next we have Price of Progress. This was an uncommon in Exodus and has only seen one other printing, and that was in a premium deck, which was Lightning and Fire, which was an all-foil product, and that was the only place where you could get this in foil. So here now we have another opportunity. Now if you want to pick up one of the premium deck foils, it's not super expensive. It'll probably cost you like $7 to $8, something like that. But here's a chance to get this in foil, and it's got brand new art. I actually really like the art on this as well. It looks really cool, and it's the art that you see there in the background. This does see play, as you could probably imagine, in legacy decks that are either burn decks and sometimes the blue-red Delver decks as well. Pyroblast. Now, we talked a lot about Hydroblast. Some of it still applies to Pyroblast. Originally from Ice Age, it was then reprinted in 5th edition. And Pyroblast actually sees a little more play than its sister card, Hydroblast, just because blue is just so powerful in Eternal formats. Now, same thing as the other card. This is your first opportunity ever to get this in foil. Now, this also is a little more expensive than Hydroblast. You can probably get a 5th edition Hydroblast for just a few cents, where this one will cost you maybe $1.50, $2. However, again, I think the real story here is what the foils are going to be valued at as we get going. So this is a card that sees play in a lot of different decks. The biggest one is Legacy Miracles. This is pretty much a staple in that deck. Also sees play in Legacy, like Grixis Delver decks. Sees play in some of the Mentor decks in Vintage. It's also another Pauper card that you get in Affinity decks, as well as like Tron decks and some of the Jeskai builds. There's just so many places that you can play this card. It's amazing. So I'm really looking forward to see what happens to the market on foils for both this and Hydroblast. Next we have Sulfuric Vortex. This was originally from Scourge. It was reprinted in Conspiracy. And again, not a really expensive card if you want to pick it up on the secondary market and give this for just a few cents. But it does see a fair amount of Legacy play. It does show up in Delver decks as well as Burn decks. So here it is, another way to get a copy. Wildfire Emissary. Now, this is actually from Mirage, and they kept the original art, which I think is awesome. This art is actually, looks more like an illustration than maybe contemporary art does, but I love the colors in this with kind of the white, yellow, orange, and reds. It's incredible, and then the contrast of the blue. So I really like this card just for the art. There's not a whole lot more I can say about it, unfortunately. It's probably really there for limited more than anything, but certainly playable in a cube or commander if you're trying to do something like that and you're looking for a pro white card. There's not a lot of pro white cards, so here's one for you. Next we have Ancestral Mask. This was originally printed in Mercadian Masks, and it was a common originally, so this is actually a Pauper card. This sees play in like the Boggles Pauper decks. So other than that, not too much to say about it. It's not a very expensive card or anything like that, but I think it's cool that it's reprinted here at Uncommon. Argothian Enchantress. Now this is a mythic, and at first glance you're going to say, I don't know, does this feel mythic? It kind of feels like it could have been a rare. Now, a couple things though that are interesting about this card. First off, it was printed in Urza's Saga. The only time it was ever reprinted was in a Judge's promo, and the Judge's promo was the only place to get it in foil. So if you want an Urza's Saga copy of the card, you can get one for probably like $10, $12 or something like that. However, if you want to get a foil, you have to go to the Judge's promo. It's going to run you about $50. So I think it's kind of cool that you have an opportunity now to get a foil of this card, but granted, you probably won't be super excited if you open this as your mythic. You'll be very happy to open this as a foil, though, for sure. Having said that, it does see a tiny bit of fringe legacy play in an Enchantress deck that's out there every once in a while. Other than that, it's a good commander card, and it's going to be fine in cubes if you have an enchantment theme. Emperor Crocodile. So this is interesting. Originally printed in Urza's Destiny. You got a couple of reprints, 8th edition, 9th edition. Basically almost valueless. However, all the other printings were at rare. So this is the first time we're seeing it as a common. So it dropped a couple levels, and I think that's just fine in this limited environment. This is going to be a very powerful limited environment, so you're going to need some powerful creatures to stand up to a lot of the powerful spells out there. Totally makes sense, but what's more intriguing is now this will become a Pauper card. So will this find a place in Pauper? Maybe. Something to think about. Green Sun's Zenith. This card was banned in Modern, which means it's basically kept its value down a little bit. Now, having said that, it's still a great card. It sees play in Legacy Infect and Legacy Elf decks, but at the same time, it is only about a $7, $8 card. It's not too hard to get. It was printed originally in Meriden Besieged, also had a From the Vault version as well. Next we have Natural Order. This was spoiled from a Japanese language spoiler. Now, a couple things. First, it's a mythic, and yes, this is a very powerful card. If you ever played with this in cubes, especially, a lot of times it shows up in power cubes, you'll know how powerful this is. It does see legacy play in elf decks. A little interesting tidbit about this card. Initially printed in Visions, it was reprinted in Portal. It got different art in Portal, which, I don't know, wasn't my favorite. However, there's also a promo version of this card, a Judge's promo, that is the only way you can get it in foil, and that's going to run you about $150. So the regular card itself still valued at about $30 or a little over $30 for either version. However, the foil version, $150. So I think this is a very fair and very good mythic, and this card's just a lot of fun to play with if you've never had a chance to in the past. Next we have Call the Skybreaker. This came from Eventide, but unfortunately this isn't one of those big Eventide rares that has a lot of value attached to it. This actually was reprinted a couple times in Commander supplemental products, and because of that, it's only a few cents to get a copy of this card. But it's a cool Commander card, and I think it will totally make sense in Limited with Retrace. Giant Solifuge. This is a Guild Pack card, and again, it's not a card that sees a whole lot of play, thus doesn't have a whole lot of value attached to it. It does see a little bit of fringe legacy play sometimes in like the legacy green stompy decks, so it does have a place, but again, it's not a card that has a lot of value in the secondary market or anything like that. Next we have Goblin Trenches, and this was from Apocalypse. Again, this is not a card that holds a lot of value, but it is a very good cube card and definitely a very good commander card as well. I've played this in cube, and it's actually very, very strong. We also get some new art in this version. Void is another rare that unfortunately isn't too valuable. You can get these usually for like under $1 or $2, but it was originally printed in Invasion, and then it was printed again as a time-shifted card in Time Spiral, and it does see play again in Commander. It's another very interesting cube card. I have played this in cubes before. It just doesn't see a lot of play in, say, Legacy or Vintage or anything. We Dragonauts, another Guild Pack card, and this actually does see play in Pauper and kind of like the Is It Pauper decks, because when it was originally printed it was a common, so now it's an uncommon, although it makes me wonder if there's going to be a Storm component in Limited. Now we haven't seen a whole lot to support that yet other than this card, but it's kind of interesting. And we also know there's a lot of cheap spells, so maybe they're just counting on cheap spells fueling this, but I guess we'll see within the next 24 hours. And now our last card of the day, Isochron Scepter. This was originally printed in Meriden, and this particular piece of art that you see here is from the Vault. There was also a promo that had a different piece of art as well. But overall, this card, even though it's been printed a few times, it's still a little spendy. Like, you can pay probably $6, $7, $8 for an Isochron Scepter on any given day. So this is cool, and I do think that this is my favorite piece of art that they've used for it, so I think they got it right there. So I think this is a decent rare. I think this will be really fun and Limited if you can get yourself like a Counterspell or a Brainstorm or who knows what else is out there that you're going to be able to combo with this. This can be quite a powerful card, especially in a limited environment. So, having said that, those are the spoilers for today. Now, my expectation is, since tomorrow is the official last day of spoilers, that we will see the rest of the set. That's normally what Wizards does, so as long as they do that, we'll begin our full set review. And other than that, if they don't do that for some reason, we'll just do another spoiler video. So regardless, I'm sure I'll see you tomorrow with more cards. Until then, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a good day.